Coming up on Tech News Today, Kotaku thinks the next PlayStation may be inspired by Simba. Do I have that right? Everybody loves China and spy on Google while it spies on you. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, March 28th, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by CorelDRAW Graphics Suite X6, introducing the most powerful version yet of the only professional graphics suite made exclusively for Windows. For a free trial plus an exclusive limited time offer, go to Corel.com/TNT, promo code TWITX6. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
And joining us today, Ms. Becky Worley. Welcome to the show, Becky. You look weird. There you are.
There she is.
There we go. That's a Becky.
I just changed my hair from black to blonde for those of you who are watching the show.
Good to have you back, Becky.
There was a little sneak peek of our surprise interim guest also, and I'm pleased to be here. Thank you so much on Ayaz's big day.
Yes, one year ago, Ayaz joined us here at TWiT. Congratulations.
Thanks, you guys.
And thank you. We could not do the show the way it is now.
It's a better show because of you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
100%. Also joining us, as you may have seen in the video version there, Veronica Belmont back. Just here yesterday, but we have a gaming story, so we had to bring her back for that because, of course, as host of Game On, she knows from gaming, right? Don't you, Belmont?
I know from gaming.
And Kotaku reporting today that the next generation of PlayStation will be called Orbis and is planned for release in time for the 2013 holiday season. This according to a reliable source who is not authorized to talk publicly about next-gen hardware but has shared correct information with Kotaku before.
Sometimes that's all you have to go on.
That's right.
And sometimes it's very accurate. And I mean, a lot of this stuff looks fairly accurate from my best guesses. I think also pretty damning were the sketches that they saw at Coke Design, which also showed some next generation PlayStation type mock-ups that could potentially be features in the next version.
Yeah, the design makes it look like it's a Kinect type device, which makes me wonder if Orbis, orb like the eye, is more of a name for the motion control device, sort of a PlayStation Eye.
Well, it does look, the mock-ups look very similar to the PlayStation Eye from what we can tell so far. And who knows, maybe these aren't even, what the designs are going to look like at all. And they're just doing some basic, like first out of the box kind of looks at what it could potentially look like in the future. But I'm not too surprised. I mean, we knew there wasn't going to be a new PlayStation coming this year. We're about 99.99% certain nothing will be discussed at E3 this coming June. I think we're far more likely, of course, to see a new Xbox. But PlayStation has still had a longer life cycle, and they were sticking to that for a long time. But I think the technology is growing so quickly and expanding so rapidly that they kind of don't have a choice. I think the thing that I'm really worried about, though, is the potential for it to not support PlayStation 3 discs, that you won't be able to use any backwards compatibility with previous titles.
Yeah, that's what Kotaku is reporting. In fact, saying that even if you buy a disc for the Orbis, it must be locked to a single PlayStation Network account. Now, that has the benefit of allowing you to re-download it later. It's part of your account history, and it would be free to re-download it. But you'd have to be online to start playing the game, and used games would be limited to a trial mode or some other form of restriction, with consumers having to pay a fee to unlock those. What do you think of that?
Well, it seems to be the general trend in the gaming industry right now is to turn people away from reselling games. And I understand that in part, but it's also a big inconvenience to consumers. I almost wish that this device, instead of limiting backwards compatibility with discs, would just move more towards downloadable games in general. I mean, I think that's been something that's been going forward for quite some time now, but losing the backwards compatibility is going to be a big issue. I know they took a really long time phasing out the PlayStation 2, but I don't know if it's going to be a big enough hardware jump to warrant cutting out PlayStation 3 titles that soon.
Yeah,
Have you guys talked a little bit about the, I think the interesting thing that I read also was the naming conjecture that Orbis and then Vita and that those two going together, orbis vitae or vitae, meaning circle of life, so that those two could interact, and that you could see it almost like the new Wii that we saw peeking out at CES, where you have the tablet-like console that's part of the interaction. Do you perceive something like that coming down the pike?
Or at the very least, a Lion King game?
Well, it kind of sounds like the one Sony experience that we heard about. The idea that everything within Sony, they're hoping in a perfect world is going to be a lot more conjoined.
Yeah, one big Sony circle of
yeah.
I mean, the Vita is a great example of how downloadable games are really useful, and I'd like to see more workability between Vita and the next generation version of the PlayStation. I know they had some trouble trying to go without using physical media in the past, so it's nice to have it both ways. I'm just worried that consumers are going to be really frustrated, having spent a lot of money on PlayStation 3 titles, to not be able to use them on the next generation console.
Does anybody think, like, just out of a bizarre chance that Sony would introduce a console that's not a successor, but like a companion, kind of like the way the PSP Go showed up before the Vita did? I mean, could they just go with this kind of like half-step, kind of unusual, kind of a download only, doesn't work with the PS3, almost like not a companion console, but another console?
Do you mean like, I would rather just see like an external hard drive if they were going to do that, and not external hard drive and external peripherals things to play the Blu-ray discs. But this is not that device. Is that what you mean? Because the specs that we're getting from this so far definitely make it a very high-powered device. Yeah,
AMD X64 CPU and the Southern Islands GPU from AMD, which would make it capable of displaying games at resolutions up to 4096 by 2160. So definitely forwards compatible as far as televisions of the future go. And that would make it able to play 3D games at 1080p.
Yeah, I mean, the specs look really nice. I mean, obviously, we have no way of figuring out if these are accurate so far, and things can change a lot in a year or more than a year. So we'll have to just keep watching it.
All right.
Can I ask one more question about that year, though? So 2013, are we going to see a Kinect or a new Xbox and a PlayStation Smackdown? I mean, is this what either of those manufacturers want?
Well, we'll be seeing a new Xbox in my estimates at E3, or probably not coming out at E3, but at least being announced at E3. I'm not sure entirely when it would be due to launch at that point, but we're close to that. So it could come down to a holiday 2013 showdown.
And of course, you can find out more about all kinds of gaming news on Game On, Sundays on TWiT. Veronica, let folks know where they can find that.
Sure. If you go to twit.tv/GO, you can check it out, all the episodes there. We're also on youtube.com/TwitGameOn, and we record live right here at live.twit.tv every Sunday night at 6 p.m. Pacific.
She also does Sword and Laser at swordandlaser.com.
I do. Swordandlaser.com. Check that out.
All right. Thanks, Veronica. Appreciate you taking the time to chat with us about some gaming.
Bye, Belmont.
Talk to you guys soon.
All right,
Bye.
Get out of here.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Let's move on to China. Everybody loves China. All kinds of China stories today. Tim Cook has been traipsing around China recently. It's his first trip to China since taking over as CEO, although he was always the guy who went to China for Apple because he was in charge of the supply chain. He's been meeting with government officials, meeting with folks at the Apple retail stores there. No meeting set with ProView, according to Reuters, so no progress in the iPad trademark battle. Also, Nokia having an announcement with China Telecom. Stephen Elop showing up on stage with an announcement that the Nokia Lumia 800C, a smartphone using the Windows operating system, will show up in China in April. They'll also be selling the Lumia 610, which is Nokia's least expensive Windows smartphone. And Mark Zuckerberg just happens to be vacationing in Shanghai, which gets the Chinese bloggers all excited. They're like, does this mean Facebook is preparing to be unblocked? Some people were joking like that they asked Mark Zuckerberg what website he worked for, and he said page not found.
Well, it's interesting because Baidu is China's big Facebook competitor. It's their Facebook-ish social network, and it has a huge user base. And I was always under the impression that it's like, well, they just use Baidu, the way that Orkut was really big in Brazil some time ago, that kind of thing. But it sounds like to me, Mark Zuckerberg is very celebrity-esque in China, just as he would be in Dolores Park in San Francisco, and people go, "Oh, there he is, take a lot of pictures. There was a movie about him, that kind of thing.
Well, there were pictures. You could see that the paparazzi had been out. He was there with his girlfriend, who was in a less than subtle, I guess you could call it a frock. So it wasn't, I mean, she was wearing this like bright yellow dress, and he looks like, he's got his hoodie and he's got his jeans and he's just cruising around. And rumors that possibly he and Tim Cook shared a jet to get over there. But it does pose some interesting, made me really do some of that research, Sarah, about what are people using there. And I guess they estimate about 450,000 people are using Facebook through VPNs in China, all illegally. So there must be some desire for people to get Facebook-like access.
You think the Chinese government would want to use Facebook timeline to track everyone?
This makes it so easy.
Where were you on the night of? Let's see. This is easy to find.
See, this could solve the Google problem, too, because if you could take the Google Analytics that they just brought out for individuals today and combine that with the Facebook timeline, it would make it so easy for the Chinese government to track people. This is genius.
I wonder if you kept Cook and Zuckerberg on a plane long enough, could they work out a deal with OS 10 or iOS finally has Facebook integration like the way Twitter is? Because they've had such a chilly relationship because I think it was back with the whole ping debacle where Apple wanted Facebook in iTunes and they couldn't come to an agreement. And they're like, well, we'll create our own network. And that's really successful. So, I mean, maybe that could help it. I mean, if that's the biggest story that comes out of like either Facebook opening up in China or China Mobile getting the iPhone.
What do you suppose he needed to go to the Apple store for? You just forget his power supply.
Expecting from as a real store.
Because that happens to me all the time. I forgot my power supply. I got to go and Apple store.
He needed an adapter. Yeah. All right, let's move on to Google, making it easier for you to find out how Google is spying on you.
Yeah, in fact, Becky kind of mentioned it before, but it is available now. It's called Account Activity, and it's Google's new opt-in dashboard service. So as long as you want to opt into this, and it's very easy to do this, Google will send you a link to a password-protected report. So once you sign up, you get a link in your email. You click the link, and you'll have to enter your password. Just an extra level of security. And the report contains all sorts of interesting facts about your last month of usage, where you signed in location-wise. It's by country, what browsers you may have used, platforms you may have used, how many emails you sent versus emails received, who you contacted the most, who contacted you, your most often searched for terms in web history, and then YouTube data if you have your account attached to a YouTube account. Most viewed videos, that sort of thing. I went ahead and linked my Gmail account, and I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. Cool, yeah, okay. I only sent 38 emails. That can't be right. And then I remembered, well, I used like 6 different Google accounts for iPad Today and my personal site. We've got TWiT email going through Gmail as well. So you can actually use Google Apps accounts exactly the same way. It doesn't have to be a Gmail account, but the data will be split up. So my aggregate data is quite a few more emails sent and received. But it's the way I think about this is, yeah, okay, if you're kind of a stats nerd and you like to know these sorts of things, that could be helpful. I think it's more helpful, and probably the way that Google's thinking of this is, if I saw that somebody checked or logged into my account from Colombia.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't been there ever. That might raise a red flag. Maybe I've seen some strange activity, that kind of thing.
Were weird authentications made on your email to other email addresses.
Or before the show, you said, I've got it said I was checking in on Android. I just don't know what that would have been.
Yeah, the platforms, the number 2 platform it put up here was Android. I'm like, sure, I use an Android tablet every once in a while, but I wouldn't think that would make it that high. So it was a little hard to find out. They have some work to do on the interface, but Ayaz figured out that there's a link to Google Dashboard below that.
You kind of have to hover over.
You hover over to make that show up. Then it takes you to Google Dashboard, where you can go to devices and see what devices have been logging into your account. And that's where I saw it was the Logitech Review. It was my Google TV. That was the Android platform that I've been using so much.
The thing is, Dashboard has been around for a while. This is not new. In fact, we were at first a little confused as to how account activity and Dashboard differed. Dashboard actually has quite a bit more information, but it's not presented in this nice emailed to you. Here's some numbers. Here's some facts about your usage over the last month. So it's not going to be necessary for everybody, but I've got it turned on, and I'll keep it turned on.
This reminded me of the Trends feature in Google Reader. I don't know if you guys use that much, and it shows you how often you actually will read everything in this particular feed or that source or not. And it's kind of nice to see this kind of, let's see, apparently I do a lot of vanity searches because it's one of the top things. So, or I'm always looking for Captain America shield wallpaper, apparently. So that's good to know that I could save these searches, I guess, for the long run. But definitely it's a beta right now. So it does
know
need
thyself.
I think they're basically trying to assuage our fears about all the information they collect about us by seeming transparent and showing it to us in a way that is incredibly boring. It's like, wow, this is what Google knows about me? Who cares? I searched for butter lettuce recipes. Like, really, do I care that they know exactly what I'm doing? I really think that in some senses, this transparency is a PR step toward getting us to just relax a little bit about what Google knows about us, which is, I think, the big monkey on their back right now.
Or it could turn us all into analytics nerds. So I started looking at my YouTube section here. I'm like, only 93 views? I could do better than that. Making more sensationalistic videos or something.
I got 48 views on a video I uploaded like a year ago. I was like,
27% of my views are from a Seen It video I uploaded as a test 4 years ago. So
This is the sort of thing. I mean, Facebook kind of dabbles in this right now, where at least it'll show you a list of devices that you've authenticated to log in and at what date you use those
there's
devices.
some good security stuff.
Yeah, and some activity logs as far as where you've been and what you've been doing. But this is a nice, hey, there are a lot of things I can do within the Google ecosystem. It's a nice little report mailed to me. But, Becky, I do agree with you. Google, rather, wants you to say, oh, okay, well, that's interesting, but it's not anything too crazy.
Right.
They just know the basics.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor, CorelDRAW Graphics Suite X6. We all know a picture's worth 1,000 words, and to get a great picture, what makes a difference is having a powerful, versatile, and easy-to-use set of tools you can trust. That's why the name that might come to your mind is not the name you probably want to be thinking of if you want power for the best value. The new CorelDRAW Graphics Suite X6 is all about combining vector illustration, page layout, photo editing, web design software in one package so you can express your style and creativity. Great for web graphics, great for logos, flyers, brochures, billboards. You can even do car wraps and photo editing all in one package. 1,000 fonts, 1,000 stock photos, 10,000 clip art image, 250 templates. There's even some training videos in there, open type support. Get it for free. Try it out. You don't have to take our word for it. 30-day free trial version of CorelDRAW Graphics Suite is available for an exclusive limited time through April 30th at Corel.com/TNT. So go get it now. And if you do decide to keep it and buy it, don't forget this promo code, TWITX6, for an exclusive 10% off. Offer varies by country. Check it out. TWiT is bringing you Corel.com/TNT for that free 30-day trial, and use that code TWITX6 for 10% off if you decide to keep it. We thank Corel for their support of Tech News Today. Now back to Australia, where Apple is responding to the story we said yesterday that they are under the gun for saying, hey, the iPad has 4G, except it's not the 4G they have in Australia. And we have the best explanation of what's going on there from an Australian. Andrew sent us this voicemail.
Hey TNT crew, this is Andrew from Brisbane, Australia. I believe that you gave Apple more of a pass than they deserved on yesterday's show regarding the 4G issue. Here in Australia, to ordinary consumers, 4G refers to one thing only: Telstra's brand new, months-old LTE network that the new iPad is incompatible with. We've never called anything else 4G before, especially not HSPA+. The ACCC are validly saying, and the judge agreed, that if you sell something in Australia and claim it has a certain capability, it's reasonable to expect that it will work in Australia without the need to jump on a plane to the other side of the world. And a previous federal court decision here said that fine print is not an antidote to misleading or deceptive conduct. Apple knew they were in the wrong because the ACCC contacted them before the device went on sale, warning them that the advertising was misleading, but Apple, being arrogant as usual, ignored them. Apple could have changed the Australian version of their website very easily, but they chose not to. Apple have agreed to give refunds to those who want them and put better signage in their stores by April 5, but they'll be back in court on May 2 to see if they're guilty and if they have to pay fines.
So a great summary of everything that's going on about Apple responding, saying that they will give refunds. They're sending emails to everyone who bought an iPad in Australia saying, hey, this is the problem. You can get a refund if you want. But he's right. They're going back into court May 2nd to evaluate whether that's enough to satisfy the ACCC. And now I know how to say it. It's ACCC, Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. So thank you for that, Andrew. Fantastic call. Also, to add to that, in Sweden, Marek Andersson of the Swedish Consumer Agency has said one may rightfully ask if the marketing of the new iPad is misleading, and they're considering launching an investigation there. Also, the UK's Advertising Standards Authority has told Pocketlit that it is currently assessing complaints from consumers to establish whether or not there is a problem under the advertising code in the UK. So this is becoming an issue for Apple.
What are they thinking? They are the biggest company in the world. Why aren't they marketing and creating a product that works in the foreign countries where they're selling this, or don't sell it until they have it? This just doesn't make a ton of sense. And I think the hubris is really important to point out, as the caller did. You know, it blew my mind when they said that the Australian Commission asked Apple to put a sticker on the packaging saying not compliant with Australian 4G. And Apple refused. This is I just think it's blatant in terms of really misleading the consumer, and it just doesn't make any sense when you think about Apple's genuine. It seems in most cases they want to put the consumer first, and they've waited on rollouts internationally until they had the right product. I don't get this move.
I think it's U.S.-centric. I think that's what it is, because when I heard about this story, I thought, well, 4G is meaningless. T-Mobile calls their HSPA plus 4G. AT&T is trying to get Apple to make the HSPA plus be 4G on the iPhone 4 when it doesn't have LTE in it. So they're just playing fast and loose like everybody else. But all the Australians in the audience wrote in and said, over here, 4G means LTE and WiMAX, and that's it. It doesn't mean anything else. Now, those are technically not 4G, but the International Standards Commission has said those rollouts of LTE and WiMAX, even though they're not technically up to 4G standards, can be called 4G.
That's what it means.
And so that's all it means in Australia. So I think it's a little bit of cultural blindness.
Well, that and it could be like a sign of Tim Cook. It's like he's a supply chain guy. They didn't bother to make specific models for specific countries because the LTE versions that are in different countries use different bands or different frequencies. And because it's U.S.-centric, they thought U.S. is the first market to hit. Let's get them first. And why bother going, okay, we're going to delay a rollout over time with these other things with different radios in there. They were able to just build one product and ship it everywhere, even though it didn't have the same capabilities everywhere. I don't think the consumers will go, okay, it doesn't work on this network, but they're going to hate Apple. They're going to still love that product because Apple has this great marketing not scheme, but scheme, when it comes to the
strategy.
There you go. That's the more positive way of saying it. But yeah, they can make people love their product even if it didn't have the latest and fastest wireless stuff. Remember, the first iPhone was on the 2G networks. It was on Edge. It wasn't even on 3G.
Well, this is just, hey, 4G is confusing. Worldwide confusion over 4G. Apple says, hey, we told you. Australia says, well, you didn't tell us well enough. So square one for Australia.
But do you guys think this is an analog to the flash issue and the standards issue that Apple has always taken? These are the standards that we are going to adopt that make the most sense, that are best in the long run for the consumer. It's not best in the long run to have competing frequencies of LTE. So we're just going to roll one product out. You guys can figure it out. This is how it is. You must conform to our standards.
I do, actually. I think that was the choice. They said, we're going to keep it simple. It's easier to test the battery life. It's easier to make a quality product if we pick two bands to put in there for LTE, and we're going to pick the two in our biggest selling country, and that's the United States right now. And I think the mistake they made was falling for the 4G marketing. I don't know that Steve Jobs would have done the same thing or not. You can play what if with that sort of thing forever, but I feel like it would have been more in Apple's character to say fast and Wi-Fi, or something, staying away from that meaningless moniker of 4G. Although they did go with 3G, they went with 3G very late in the game. They're using 4G very early in the game here.
Well, maybe their legal department was all tied up with all the Samsung suits and every other patent suit. They're like, we forgot about this one thing because they were really, really busy. I don't know.
It just seems, it's interesting though, Tom, because I think not a, what would Steve do kind of thing, but more or less that they would have taken the offensive on this and said, that's it, we're not making anything other than 3G available or only Wi-Fi available in other countries because your standards are such a mess, or we'll make it available, but we're just telling you it's not going to work and that's not our problem. Nobody seems to have said that from Apple.
That's a good point. However, Samsung is celebrating because not only is Apple in trouble, but they shipped a lot of notes.
Yeah, Samsung announced that it actually sold 5 million Galaxy Note phones worldwide in 5 months. It was introduced.
Fabulous.
Yeah, the phablet, as people call it, because it's not quite a phone, not quite a tablet. It's got that ridiculous 5.3-inch screen. It's got that stylus. But
Emperor Joseph II wasn't excited, though. He said it was too many notes.
That
Too
is
many
so
notes.
arcane, Tom.
Oh,
Well,
Mozart
I'm sure he wouldn't have liked it.
Everybody loves a good Mozart
He'd
joke.
still look at the device and go, "This is witchcraft," and throw it down and probably have it burned. I'm not really sure. But what's more exciting, I think, is the fact that a new version of the Note is coming out on April 6th, and this is in Japan. It's officially called the Docomo Next Series Galaxy Note SC05D. I know that sounds exciting.
That's hot.
But it has pretty much the same stuff inside, except it's got LTE. Price is not available yet, but pre-orders start tomorrow. And this was a great piece by Sasha Sagan at PC Mag talking about the success of the Note. He's worried that the Galaxy Note success will encourage more manufacturers to build giant beast phones like the HTC Titan and the Galaxy Nexus.
Why? Where's the worry? If somebody wants this form factor, and obviously a lot of people do, then they can buy something that someone has provided. Doesn't mean we're all going to lose our smaller form factor phones.
But are we losing them? We keep getting average phone size keeps getting larger, 4.3, 4.7 on these things.
Not all phones.
But if people like 5.3, it's going to be ridiculous. You can't even use that with one hand.
These big
But you don't
phones
have
do
to
pose
buy
a problem, though. They pose a problem. It's called baby hands. And I have noticed this. I went to the store to go get a new Android phone the other day, and the guy is I've got the Skyrocket, and the guy's trying to upsell me, and he pulls from his back pocket, he pulls the Note out, and he was like a 6'2" guy, and I just looked down at the phone in his hand, and the proportions looked so wrong. And I just looked up at him, and I said, baby hands, and he put it right back in his pocket.
Well, you don't have to buy the Note if you're worried about baby hands. I think that's Sarah's point.
You
could choose.
It's like
epidemic,
I don't know why it matters if there are many more Galaxy Note-sized phablets in the market, as long as I have my smaller form factor.
I mean, this also is what Samsung does, right? They come out with every single size. They have like a 3.5. They have a 2.7-inch phone if you want. You can have a 5.3. You want a 10.1. They don't care.
We got one. We got one for you.
Exactly what you want. They'll fit it to your size. It's like jeans at that point. Like whatever size you want, you can get it. And it's not really going to eliminate. It's not like they're hunting each other. I mean,
but it is like jeans. It has to fit in the back pocket.
I don't put my phone in my back pocket. Ever.
That's because you wear skinny jeans.
Because I have a jacket.
Or you have a merce.
Because I wear skinny jeans, exactly.
Skinny jeans and
You
a
wear
man bag.
jeggings.
That's right. I'm always in jeggings, so what am I going to do with my phone?
He puts it in the tight part right around his ankles.
Right. I roll it up in my sleeves and keep like a pack of
Or I
cigarettes.
used to keep his cigarettes,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
All right, fine. Let's finish up with a story that's going to bore all three of you. But
Okay.
this is for you, Europeans. Those of you who write in and say, you never cover our stuff, here you go. Under new rules agreed by the European Parliament, consumers will pay no more than 29 cents or 24 pence per minute to make a call and 59 pence per megabyte for data downloads across Europe. Extension of a cap on roaming fees for voice service and text messaging have been in effect in the 27-nation European Union since 2007, so they're extending them. They're extending it to data. The package requires approval from the European Parliament and the Council of Ministers. The leaders of both those houses have expressed support, brokered by Neelie Kroes, the European Commissioner responsible for telecommunications. By July 2014, customers will also be given the option to shop around for the best deal and sign up for a separate mobile contract using their existing number when going abroad. I want that. The ability to be like, hey, I'm leaving the country. I'm going to use a different provider for roaming because they give me a better deal. They're essentially mandating wholesale access. And starting in July this year, people will get a warning text message, email, or pop-up window when they're nearing the 50 euros worth of data downloads. That is the limit provided by the current cap when you're outside of Europe.
So over in Europe, they figured out consumer protection laws that sound friendly to consumers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very civilized.
What is that about?
They've really had to put a lot of energy into this, IAS. This whole debt crisis thing made the EU seem like a bad idea, so they had to really flip the coin fast and get people psyched up about something.
They're
This
like,
is
look,
it.
people in Spain, Italy, and Greece are not going to be able to use phones if we don't
At
put
all.
a cap on this data right now.
That's right.
And Ireland,
Their data is capped at about a quarter of that because that's their austerity. But everybody else, you Germans, go nuts. That's what I'm saying.
Just to give balance to the story, socialism. Let's move on to the news views. Max Payne 3 isn't scheduled for release until mid-May, but video of its multiplayer mode is out there. The mode allows you and your partner, Raoul, to fight folks or work with gangs. Slashgear says the difference between the multiplayer and one-player mode is, quote, the near destruction of the storyline.
Think a passcode will protect your phone from law enforcement? Of course
Yeah,
not.
sure. No.
No, Microsystemation, a mobile forensics company, posted a video showing off its application called XRY that can successfully grab GPS location data, call logs, keystrokes, and more off of locked Android and iOS devices. XRY uses security flaws in the phone software to obtain the data. They're watching you.
Google Plus Hangouts got some apps today. When you launch a Hangout, you'll see an apps button. So when you're video chatting with your friends, you could play poker or put on a virtual mustache if you want, or even be productive with SlideShare and show off documents and videos and things. Developers can actually build apps and post a link in the Hangout so the other users can try it out. Google says the new features are rolling out gradually, so if you don't see it yet, it's coming.
Box introduced a new version of its iOS app called Box OneCloud, which allows users to view, edit, and share a number of different file types. The app is also aimed at the enterprise, not the spaceship, but, like businesses. You'll be using QuickOffice to handle Microsoft Office files, but we'll let you guess what PDF Expert does.
The European Union is putting together a new center to fight cybercrime. It will be alongside Europol. European Commissioner for Home Affairs Cecilia Malmström said that this will bring together some of Europe's best brains in the field of cybercrime. There aren't any mentions yet if these will be brains that are in people or if the EU is now going to be zombified.
Socialism.
Time to take a look at Google and Oracle's monstrously large legal spat. A court filing reveals that Google offered to pay Oracle a percentage of Android revenue if Oracle could prove patent infringement. Google would have paid Oracle 0.5% of Android revenue for one patent and 0.015% on a second patent. Now, Oracle rejected these offers as too low. Presiding Judge William Alsup said of the case, quote, "This is the World Series of IP cases." At least somebody's having fun with this. Series.
What's in a name? Apple's personal assistant Siri was almost renamed by Steve Jobs. Siri co-founder Dag Kitlas explained a meeting he had with Jobs, which lasted for several hours. Kitlas tried his best to persuade Jobs, and Jobs couldn't come up with anything better than Siri. And now you know, and knowing is half the battle.
I love that. I can imagine that. I hate this. All right, well,
That's
what do you want to
Steve
call
Jobs
it?
said to everything.
I don't know.
Call it Steve.
This
That's
sucks,
not.
though.
No, we can't call it Steve.
I just want you to know I don't like it. Let's put it in the phone. Call it Beta. Hasbro tried to stop Asus from selling its line of Transformer tablets, including the Transformer Prime. Hasbro owns the rights to the giant robot variant of Transformers, and Hasbro also claimed the legal standard of confusion in the marketplace. But a judge declared that there wouldn't be confusion and that Asus's use of the word was descriptive enough since the device transforms from a tablet to a laptop.
What?
And not
Common
a
sense.
robot that people make movies out of.
Right.
So
take
there's
that.
a difference.
Becky, are you ready for the randomizer?
I'm all for randomizing.
Randomizer.
Amazon's Jeff Bezos has announced the discovery of the Apollo 11 rockets at the bottom of the Atlantic. Yes, Jeff Bezos has been searching the Atlantic for the Apollo 11 rockets. I guess he has a lot of spare time between Kindles.
He's got the Bezos Expeditions. That's the site he has here. He's
How
doing a
very
whole lot.
James Cameron of him.
Yeah, doing some weird things.
Yes.
He says he's excited to report using state-of-the-art deep-sea sonar. His team found the Apollo 11 engines 14,000 feet below the surface. And so it says it's still property of NASA. So if NASA wants it, they can have it, and they can put it in the Smithsonian and knock themselves out.
I wonder if people at NASA are like, oh, well, great. Now we know where it is.
You found our garbage.
Mr. Bezos.
Thanks.
It's ours.
It's like when I worked at the bookstore and people brought in their old National Geographic collections thinking it was the best thing ever. And we're like, yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot.
You know what would be a good coffee table book is When Billionaires Get a Wild Hair. I mean, they do some weird stuff. Like, has he been thinking about this for a long time?
I mean, it is a piece of history, right? And he obviously was really excited when Apollo 11 went up and people landed on the moon. Everybody was excited at that. So I guess if I were as rich as Jeff Bezos and had some spare time, I might fund an expedition to go find those rockets.
Do you think he eats dinner in the special room, the Apollo 11 room, regularly? Like, how often is he visiting all of this stuff in his
It's like a
little
Batcave,
museum?
man. He's got a whole bunch of like.
And he dresses
kinda-
up in a spacesuit.
Kind of like to think of him down there.
And he eats
I love
Neapolitan ice cream
part.
and freeze-dried
Look at
pizza.
this window.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend the rest of the day thinking about if I was a billionaire, what would my wild hair be? I'm gonna rack my brain and come
Iron
up with
Man
something
suit.
crazy.
I'll
Keep
tell
an
you
eye
that.
on
Maybe.
B. Worley on Twitter to find out more.
Thank you.
What's on the calendar?
RIM has an earnings call tomorrow. We are thrilled. We're on the edge of our seats. It's the company's
It's going to be
first.
so great. There's going to be such good news.
Totally. I mean, we're all expecting a really big quarter. It is the company's first full reported quarter since CEO Thorsten Heinz took over for Jim Balsillie and Mike Lazaridis in January. So it's a big deal. It might not be a big quarter, but we will have to wait and see.
I'll be following it on my playbook.
Absolutely. Also, Google is taking student proposals for Summer of Code 2012 internships, and they're actually hosting a hangout on April 2nd to answer more questions about it. If you don't know what Summer of Code is, since 2005, Google has sponsored paid internships for students to work on open source projects in the company, and about 1,000 students total will be accepted. And it might be you if you're a student. Pretty cool. And finally, Verizon's LTE hotspot called the Jetpack Hotspot MiFi 4620L because they...
Snappy.
Yeah, they just wanted to keep it really long. Launches on April 12th. It's $50 after a rebate. You have to have a 2-year contract. Handles up to 10 devices at once. At speeds of 12 megabits per second down, 5 up. Verizon requires a minimum $50 per month data plan for 5 gigabytes, and it'll be available via Verizon and Best Buy.
All right, let's finish up with some incoming messages. Incoming message. Thank you. Simon responds to Alan in our ongoing HTML5 conversation. I love that we're letting Simon and Alan hash this out over the show. That's pretty awesome. He says, quick response to Alan's comments in TNT 466. Alan is entirely correct to note all novel UIs roll their own controls or layouts for things standard toolkits don't provide. But HTML5 lacks a standard UI toolkit to begin with, aside from the form element originating in HTML1. As such, HTML developers roll their own for bits of UI that have been staples of other platforms since the 1980s. Things like menus, toolbars, tree lists, grid layouts, to name but a few. With a web app like Gmail or Google Docs, you're not seeing a few custom controls complementing a standard HTML core, but oodles and oodles of JavaScript manufacturing an entire toolkit from very nearly nothing. Thankfully, many toolkits are available as open source, but shouldn't HTML define common controls and layouts out of the box like rival app platforms instead of relying on browser-specific JavaScript to replicate even basic functionality? He goes on to say, to be fair to Alan, I build complex visualization controls. I'm surely more deeply exposed to HTML5's limitations than other folks. And we'll put the rest of his email in there if you want to hear about his thoughts on W3C UI markup and such. But thank you, Simon and Alan, for having this conversation. I'm learning stuff just by watching their back and forth.
Me too. You guys are schooling us. Got another email from Quinn, a computer science student from Pennsylvania. Hey, TNT. The idea of using a nutrition label approach to privacy policies has actually been around for a while. Here's a link to a Carnegie Mellon research paper on the subject published a couple of years ago. He links to an FTC.gov article, which we will put in our show notes as well. He says, unfortunately, as the study found, many privacy policies are so complicated that even standardized labels can be difficult for the average user to decipher. Just thought you might want to know about this.
All right. Good. Thanks, Quinn.
Thank you.
For the perspective as well. And that's it. Thank you for submitting your stories in our subreddit. TechNewsToday.reddit.com is the place to go to either let us know what stories you think we should cover or just vote on the stories other people think we should cover and let your voice be heard. TechNewsToday.reddit.com. Becky Worley, always great having you on the show.
Pleasure being here. Love doing the Tech News Today. And you can find me on Twitter, BWorley, or Google+. I miss my Tech News Today people and fans of TWiT. So find me there.
All right, that's it for this show. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, or give us a call. Our phone number is 260-TNT-SHOW. We'll be back with you tomorrow. See you then.
Do, do, do. Woo, woo, woo. Oh, extended dance remix. Here we go.
Jazz hands.
Baby hands.